For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We've started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Hi folks, Tanzin here. I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up for the following episode. We unfortunately experienced some technical difficulties with our guest's remote recording this time around. Before you get too far, you may want to adjust your speakers to a lower volume to start, just in case. I regret we have some buzz in the guest's audio signal that I just was not able to get rid of in post-editing. Well, that's it for now. Back to the regular episode. Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 8.16, Fuego, Pyro, Fuego, where we are covering the novel Grave Peril. My name is Tanzin, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
Heyo.
We have another guest today. Mike Socks, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to this. This is awesome.
We're glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I've been a fan of Jim Butcher and the Dresden Files for a lot of years. I think the first book I picked up was Grave Peril, actually, and then I went back and read Stormfront, carried on from there. So I've been a fan. I've been around this for quite a while, I think.
Right on.
Nice. One of the examples of starting in at the restart. It's cool if you read Stormfront and Grave Peril, but if you start at Grave Peril, you really get hooked, and then you can.
Oh, exactly.
So, making our point. Cool.
We want to send a special shout out and thank you to our newest Patreons, Toddler Stilts and KJotter13. By supporting us, they now get a special Discord Patreon access, McAnally stickers, and our undying love and support. A huge, huge thank you to Toddler Stilts and KJotter13. If you'd also like to grab us a pitcher, pint, or sampler to get loads of fun perks and exclusive merchandise, check out our Patreon channel today. Chapter 30. Dresden makes his stand and the vampires attack. Dresden manages to get Lydia. As they try to leave, Bianca captures Justine. Bianca makes a deal with Thomas for giving up his companions in exchange for her, which he accepts by giving Susan to the vampires. Bianca quickly double-crosses Thomas. In a rage, Dresden casts an intense fire spell, which allows for them to escape. So chapter 30.
Ooh. So we finished off at the end of the last chapter with Michael getting ready to jump into the fray and Dresden being like, oh, wait, hang on. And he's like, dude, we got to do something. So then he's like, crap. And then Susan's like, Harry grabs his stuff and Susan's like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, I guess I'm doing the right thing. So we're picking up basically right where by, basically just the action of his actions, by taking a hold of his sword cane and that it's obvious kind of what he's getting ready to do. He's telegraphing his
intent.
His intent. So so everything's about to kick off real fast. So he basically starts off with his little description of like how a battle goes, like in games and history books, they make it all sound very simple and very blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, real battle is not like that. Pretty much everybody they step forward and the vamps all just kind of, boom, jump in.
I was going to say, I really appreciated how Jim wrote that. And listening to an audio for the first time of James Marster, that was really, really well done. I really enjoyed that first little bit, even though there was no action specifically. It was just setting the mood, really, for a big fight scene. I thought it was amazing.
And that's one of the things that Butcher is good at. It's like you go right from the precipice of, you're about to step off the edge of the cliff at the end of the last chapter. And then he pulls you back for a moment where you're like, the first sentence isn't like, I stabbed someone, it's also like in games and books, you're like, he does such a good job of bringing in this little back explanation, right? Where you take a second, you're like, what? And then you're like, oh, and just sets it up so real, right? Makes it sound so like, exactly, right? How many battles have we all studied in school one way or another at one point in our lives? And you're right, it's like, all it sounds very simple. And you're like, well, this is this and that was that. And you could, but fact of the matter is, it's just fucking crazy.
Well, it's nice because
chaotic.
It really directs the reader's imagination to where he wants it, what direction he wants to go.
Yes.
And it really sets up the idea that this is his memoirs well after the fact. That, in hindsight, yeah, the stuff that they told you, it's crap. It doesn't work like that in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And now that, he sort of had time to go back and reflect and be like, yeah, so this is what was going on in the moment. Everything is so fast and so chaotic. He's like, the only thing is, how do I stay alive? And now afterwards you can come back and describe like what happened and this and that, right? So yeah, basically it's on. A tide of vampires came toward us. They rushed in, animal swift, a blur of twisted, bulging faces and staring black eyes. So yeah, it's immediate survival mode.
Right. Thomas gives them a little bit of an edge, and he tells them to aim for the bellies, which makes them weak, unable to fight. And that just to me was such a grotesque description. I read that and was just super grossed out.
We always do. I usually listen to the chapters ahead of time when I'm coming, because I now have about like an hour and a half drive between my house. I used to be like 10 minutes. Now I moved just out of town, and so I go in, and some days I have to go pick up Jessica and then get here and whatever. So it's like, so I usually do a recap right as I'm doing all this driving. It's like I plug in the audiobooks and listen, so everything's nice and fresh. And Jessica was listening when she hops in the car, and she's just like, ew, gross. Bleh, ick. Like, yeah, pretty much. It's a real good visual, that one he gives you. So it's kind of nice that it's like the vamps have all this, preternatural, supernatural strength and speed, but really they're only at the top of their game on a well-fed stomach.
Right, they're not invincible.
And basically that's where they're pulling from. So, I mean, like you say, I'm sure they're still capable of all kinds of nasty stuff, like when Kyle and Kelly come to give the invitation, he makes the comment about Kelly being on a diet, but she's obviously not, wasted away and incapable of, he's not like, having her limp along behind him or something because she hasn't eaten. But yeah, basically if you get rid of the blood sac right here and now, and that's gonna cause most of us, I don't think, are doing a whole lot after we get completely like gutted and eviscerated, to be fair. But yeah, it's a really, they don't just barrel, cut off an arm and they're probably still going to come at you. But if you hit them directly where they live,
their so-called Achilles heel, their Achilles belly, their Achilles stomach.
Actually, it does, now that you've mentioned it, I'm thinking it'd be a really good, ploy against Dresden is like, maybe this guy doesn't know anything about vampires. Let's tell him, say Kelly's on a diet, even if she's not. Then he'll be like, this is what a weak-ass vampire is like. And that'll really bug him out. And then he won't mess with us at all,
Right. The bluff,
maybe
the fake
she was
out,
never on a diet in the first place, He's just like, well, just tell him she is. And he can be all like, oh my God, they're so strong
that was
anyway.
The weakest of them.
Yeah.
Or Dresden's just really actually just making fun of her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
I'm going to make her sound like a really shitty person.
Even better is, because these are memoirs. He's looking back. He's like, you know what? Fuck you. You're a weak ass bitch now.
Right.
You know who else is going to read these journals? Just my adoring apprentices.
Right.
Almost said mentors, but no.
Almost. No. Whoops.
I thought it was interesting that the vampires targeted Thomas and Michael first and didn't really go after Harry right off the bat. And they almost didn't count him as being a threat as much as they did Michael, who didn't even have the sword, and Thomas.
Yeah, well, you can count that, I think, in a couple of ways. I never really looked at it like that beforehand, but you could say that, Michael is still, he doesn't have the sword, but he still is right next to, the angels and as far as Earth mortals goes, Michael's about as far up there and in the fold as you can get. So I think, like you say, he's already demonstrated a few moments ago when they had their conversation with Mavra that when he he didn't even have a proper cross or a crucifix, and yes, there's a difference, folks, or, may or may not be blessed, whatever. He has the hilt of his dagger makes a cross. And that was enough to, like, blinding flash of light. Like, you know, it wasn't just like, oh, you held it up. It was like a visible whole thing, right? So I think Michael is definitely still, he's been in this, like you say, longer than Harry. Like, these guys probably all know who, you know, I mean, Mavra certainly knew who he was. He killed her scourge of, you know. So I'm like, a bunch of these Reds probably are familiar with the Knights, either in story fashion, if not any personal encounters. So I think a trained warrior that he is, I definitely think. Thomas, yes. Thomas, again, he's in the know, right? He's one of the other vampire courts, his cousins or whatever is Bianca. So I think they know he has a leg up in the strength and skill department and stuff like that he's going to be tougher to put down. The other thing, though, is that at the end of it, Michael's about to step forward and you see, like, Harry, you know, reaches out and puts his hand on his shoulder. So to me, it also could simply be
that he's just behind them.
That they're just, they're the first ones in front. Harry was a step behind with, you know, because they were all facing and talking to Marbra, and then they, like, turn around to face the rest of this court. So I'm like, it could also simply be logistics that it just so happened that Thomas and Michael were the ones right in front, so they get the first wave as it comes in. But
well, going off of that too, I would say, you know, as much as Bianca has an issue with Harry, I think if you're just a regular ass vampire and you're purely going off of reputation, you know, I think I'd be like, well, we hate the Knights of the Cross and we hate the other vampire courts.
We hate the White Court.
I don't like Thomas, I don't like Michael, you know, like, not this random little bitch ass wizard that no one's heard of.
Well,
right?
and exactly. Like, Thomas has been around a lot longer than Dresden. Like, their courts, their families, whatever, have obviously had a much more long-standing...
Both of them have been on the scene before.
They already know that... that's why it was such an insult, because Thomas is just, you know, the nobody bastard son of he holds no power in the White Court, and they sent him, right? So they already know Bianca hates him, and that he's just... you know, some little...
Anyway, it'd be the same thing as,
like...
It'd be the same thing as, like, you know, maybe Marcone is like, this stupid bitch or whatever like that. But at regular gang people are like, who the fuck cares? Like, he's not another rival gang. He's not a politician. Like, our boss just has random beef with this, like, random dude, right? Like, that's basically what I would imagine all these vampires are. Okay, Bianca says to kill him, but, like, I'm staring at threats. No, he's not.
Well, and this is the thing. This is part of Harry's point, too. He's like, I tried to have one conversation with her. Didn't go well, because she came out it from a whole other place that, you know, assumptions, people don't make assumptions. Bianca had completely the wrong idea. And
his pocket full of sunshine was defense, not offense.
Yes, exactly. He literally just wanted to talk. He had no clue, and she thought he knew what was up. She thought he did it. She thought, whatever. She had all her own. So exactly beyond that, everybody else is like nobody else was there for this interaction. Dresden had nothing to do with her since. She's been,
nursing everybody else.
Well, yeah, she's been nursing and harboring this grudge on her own for a couple of years.
You know, when someone cuts you off in traffic, you're like, I hope you die today, right? And that person just goes on with their life, and you're like, I hope you get a flat tire and you're late to work and your boss fires you, right? And they're just like, they've never even thought about you again.
They don't even realize they cut you. Yeah, exactly.
You and Dresden's like, la 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 la.
Like, wait, what? We're still on that?
Yeah, seriously, yeah. Like, what?
Which I think he pretty much said to her at one point. He's like, you crazy? Like, what the hell?
Girl, I cut people off in traffic every day.
Right? So anyways, yeah.
I leave bumpers behind in the street everywhere I go.
I'd like to say she was joking, folks, but I've seen her drive.
I'm talking from Dresden.
Sorry. Yeah, I totally meant Dresden.
What the fuck?
But yeah, we have another moment, kind of like Harry's in the beginning when Thomas is like explaining the courts, and then Harry's like, I knew that, like when Thomas mentions the court, and Michael kind of like explains, you know, like there's 3 of them, and Harry's like, I knew that. And then here's Thomas, he's like, get him in the belly, and Michael's like, I know! It's like, okay, just for those of you that didn't. Although it is kind of funny because I realized afterwards, I think when he's having the conversation with Mavericks, he talks about, maybe when he mentions the Stoker's big bad book of killing black vampires, because basically in the beginning he makes it sound like he doesn't really know, like when Michael's like, oh, there's 3, the black, the red, and the white. He's like, yeah, I knew that. Makes it totally sounds like he doesn't really know. Yet when he's talking with her, he's like, oh, the blacks are all about garlic and, you know, and I'm like, so wait, so you do know about the different types?
No, that was a surprise to him, because it wasn't until, like, he threw the garlic from Susan's bag that she, like, disappeared, and he's like, oh, so Stoker's book was a how-to, was it? Yeah, it was a surprise to him. He didn't know.
Maybe it just, there was something in it. I'd have to go back specifically. I don't know if it was just that or not, but it just, anyways, it gave me more the impression, or maybe it's coming up somewhere where he talks more about, anyways, it just seemed like all of a sudden he had more information about that.
He knows just enough to be dangerous.
Well, mostly to himself.
Right.
But
Michael gets caught up in a big dog pile with several vampires, and Kyle appears with a semi-automatic, but Dresden does something cool and uses a magnetism spell and totally disarms him, which I thought was super cool.
Super cool. It is the first time. And he kind of says, he's like, I'm not really big on the earth magics, but I like to keep my hand in just to, and, you know, again, no spoilers, but we don't always see a lot of earth magic from Harry. But yes, he pulls out this earth magic thing, which is kind of cool. And
It's always very powerful, though. He says he doesn't use earth magic much because that's not his forte, but when he does, damn if it's never...
Well, I think, to me, that feels just a little inherent of earth magic. If you're going to be moving the earth and magnetic forces and boulders, it's always going to have. But yeah, again...
Rock-type Pokemon, ground-type Pokemon, they got a lot of boom, smash, pow.
Yeah, and again, just because a lot of Harry's is just boom, smash, pow anyways. He just hasn't ever really practiced up to be, really good. Or he would go to, like, shake the earth a little, like, the equivalent of, like, pulling the carpet out from under you and making you fall down. And he would just, create, like, a desert-sized crater or something like that.
He just pulled the entire table out.
He just pulls the entire carpet, floor, crust of the earth. And so, I always take it sort of that way, that, it's a powerful type of magic.
No finesse.
Just no finesse. As with everything. He's just never bothered to practice. Which, again, in some ways, weird, considering that he's always like, oh, nobody expects you to pull a gun. Nobody expects you to, like, punch him in the face. I'm like, well, nobody expects you to open the earth under them either, Harry. So since you are a lot of brute force, why are you not better at earth magic? Why do you not? Yes, exactly. I'm like, it can be pretty brutal on its own, and if you actually knew how to use that with, I'm like, just think of all the things you could have avoided by, just like drop Bianca like up to her neck and like close the earth around her again. She's not doing a much.
You know what really pays the bills though is searching down lost wedding rings, not standing in a field practicing earth magic.
That's true.
This is why, children, I know it really seems like, you want to get out of school as fast as you can, but one day your hobbies you're not going to have time for them. You're going to have to go and get a job, and you're going to realize how much it fucking sucks.
Right.
So.
But, by that argument, you could also use earth magic to find. I mean, just... you lost it planting your garden, just have the garden just spit out your diamond ring and your...
If Harry tries to do that with his... it would make it spit into the...
Jack and the Beanstalk.
This is like, he's got to practice to get the finesse, and he could find a lot more wedding rings. I'm pretty sure at some point he mentions, I don't know if it was one of the short story graphic novels we did or somewhere down the road, but he mentions finding somebody's, like, lost coins at the bottom of the ocean or something like that.
You know what, Harry? You're always a starving dude. Yeah, maybe just keeping, like, a tomato plant in your apartment, could help a guy out every now and again, like some start small, but like maybe you wouldn't be like, living off of like, what was it?
SpaghettiOs and
Coke. Be living off of SpaghettiOs if you like cultivated the tiniest garden, in your kitchen or something,
just magicked up his own vegetables.
Well, yeah, if you want to start, I would imagine, I don't have a green thumb at all, but I imagine, keeping a tomato plant alive with magic is probably a good place to start versus like creating craters in your garden,
I see. The only problem is Harry's so ham-handed. It's much easier for him to create it.
I understand that, but I still think, if he just kept a couple beans and tomatoes, like...
Well, I mean, it's in his basement and there's no real sunlight, so I think it'd be just a lot of mushroom.
I think if Harry had, started this whole thing earlier, he could have created the Beyond Meat thing way easier. Started growing pepperoni in your basement,
Right? All these missed opportunities of these wizards. Like,
you focused on flying carpets, man. You should have been like...
One bad experience and he was just...
I brought this up a little while ago and didn't, so far enough say it. I just, alluded to it for people who actually had read the book, but I'll say it right now. In Project Hail Mary, a dude just starts... he turns his own meat. He grows himself. He uses his own cells to grow meat. So he just cannibalizes himself, kind of, because he's just using his own DNA to grow milk, but synthetically, right?
Oh my god, that's sort of horrifying.
So he's like, yeah, it is cannibalistic, but I'm eating myself, so I'm kind of okay with it, morally.
I gave consent.
Yeah, right?
That's so messed.
So anyways, I'm like, Harry could have started somewhere there,
right?
I'm not talking about human testing or actual cannibalism, but if it's your own cells you're growing into meat, yeah, you give consent to eat yourself, then you should be allowed to do that, right?
I would love to see what the White Council would say about something like that.
Right. Well, then there's a reason he really doesn't want to invite Morgan into his apartment for tea.
Would you like a sandwich? No.
See, I don't know.
people complain like they go to Canada and order bacon, it's turkey bacon.
It's when
you go to Chicago when it's fucking human meat.
when Dresden offers you a finger sandwich, do you just...
Too far.
You never know.
That's where we draw the line, I guess.
As long as it's not lady fingers, though.
That's true. It'd have to be boy fingers only. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, he does the cool Magneto whips Kyle's fancy gold-plated gun, and he's just like, yeah, whatever. Twing! And then smashes it into the face of somebody trying to sneak up on Justine. And then Thomas literally just... slides the legs out from under him. So they're not easy. They're not instant takedown. They're not, even though they figured here out a party of vamps and
It wouldn't make for much of a battle if it was
they hold their own for a minute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They what?
They hold their own for a minute.
They get to hold their own. But that's just the point being is I'm sure the vamps just thought, you threw the first punch, now we're going to squish you like bugs. And unfortunately the bugs fought back and they really weren't expecting that.
Right.
So they were like, oh, wait.
And then Michael manages to dispatch that dog pile with what sounds like, it seems like a Latin prayer. I'm not.
Yeah.
I didn't bother translating, but
it basically
that seemed to work.
Cleanse that which is unclean. Yeah, the lava quod est sodium. It basically is, cleanse that which is unclean. Which, a bunch of vampires.
Take a bath.
Pretty much. I think we're going a little deeper than that, but
okay.
yes. So the Jesus Domini and basically just, calling on God and that. So basically they see him get swarmed and the bottom of his dog pile, and then basically he just does the whole stand up and fling everything off of him, magic special effects things.
It's a very superhero moment. I like it.
It's a very kind of superhero moment. And yes, and again, right, with his Latin battle cries. So he's a little beat up. He hasn't come out of this completely unscathed, but when he went down, he was fighting his way through them and all that kind of stuff. And then between the power of prayer and the power of his daggers and his fists, he manages to, so they don't like that. That I think, has the extra, that the preying upon them kind of a thing is...
It was effective.
It was effective. It was, yeah.
The really nice part after this, too, is when you really get to see Harry step into his element and be in control, too, when he starts issuing directions.
Yes.
That's actually, I really like it, It's a glimpse into the future, but it's like, yeah, Harry,
Yeah, it's that, what is it, great leaders... Some people are born to lead and some have it thrust upon them or whatever, that whole shtick. And that's a little bit Harry. Harry's like, where everyone's standing there going, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Harry's like, I don't know. I don't want to be in charge. I want to go home and go to bed. And then when shit starts going down, right, once he makes the decision, then basically, he's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So Thomas is like, okay, well, we got to take out Bianca because she's the leader.
And Dresden and Michael head up the stairs while Thomas, Susan, and Justine sort of hold back the crowd.
Yeah, that is to get them holding the foot of the stairs so they can go. And I do kind of like this because this is a very frequent part of fiction and stuff like that, where especially, you're watching movies, and I'm like, I get a little bit, it's hard sometimes, for so much to happen. There's 10 things happening in real time. Like Jessica talks about the Dungeons and Dragons. Basically, everybody takes 6 seconds, but they're all sort of that 6 seconds at the same time. But of course, you have to go individually around the board for each of them, right? And it always makes me think of, my brothers used to make such fun of the old Hercules cartoon. And it was like, the beast would be like rampaging up on good old Hercules or whatever. And it would be, they'd show a wide shot and the thing's 5 feet in front of Hercules. And then he decides to take out his ring from his belt. He puts the ring on, and the ring, they did the little glowy thing and the little zappy thing and the little ring spiraling
Magical
out.
girl transformation.
And all this kind of stuff. And Hercules is ready. And then they go back to a wide shot. And now all of a sudden the demon monster thing or whatever is 20 feet back running at him. And they always used to make the joke, they're the power of the ring used to blow them back. And but I mean, really, they would show it, they were right here, but then by the time he did all this magical, it was 10 feet away, it was still just starting to come at him, right? I'm that's always kind of how it is here. So they make the thing where he's they see Mavra is poised, that's basically what kicks this off, is she's about to gut Lydia, and Michael's we can't let this happen, and Harry's can't we? No, okay, shit, no, we can't. And then boom, they've got to fight through all of these, first few ranks in between them and get up the stairs and get, and you're there's no way. Like, it would take her 2 seconds. One, she's a freaking vampire. Like, she's strong. It's not going to be. She's quick. And she was, like, right there already to do it. And I like at least that Butcher addresses it. And he's like, Mama just got distracted by the rest of the fight because he's, because Dresden's like, there's no way we're going to be in time. And then he's like, oh, shit, she hasn't done it yet. And then Oliver's like, oh, yeah, wait, shit, I was going to kill this girl.
Right.
I think Mavra wanted to see, especially Michael go down.
Well, I'm sure, yes.
And was probably quite surprised when he didn't right away.
That fucker again. Back up.
Would have
Yeah.
been really nice, though, if Michael could have taken her out now, though. Would have caused a lot of problems in the future.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Saved a lot of problems from the future.
Saved a lot of things. Yep. I agree. But no. Butcher.
So Dresden attempts a spell on Amarachius, but Maverick keeps hold of the sword, and Dresden flings her with the sword, which finally the sword ends up flying away after that. But,
Comical,
like,
sort of.
whee!
Right? Exactly. Well, yeah, he uses his magnetism spell. So he pulls it out, and then he uses it like twice. And then we don't see it again for I don't know how long. But yeah, exactly right. He's trying to keep the sword from, just figuring he'd sort of do the same thing and like yank it away like he did to Kyle, only she's like, nah, and hangs on to it. And then he's like, okay, fine, fuck you. And then he's like, I just whip my cane in an arc and just center. And I'm like, again, it's just that, like, I had that moment the last chapter where I was like, it's sort of comical, like Mavra's like perfectly stock still with just like the eyeballs bouncing around and moving. I'm like, it's the same kind of thing. It's like all of a sudden Mavra's just like, whee! Like cartoon flung off the side of his dais and like out into the crowd.
In the old Pokemon TV show, when every time Ash Ketchum defeated Jesse and James, and they would just go flying off until they were a little like twinkling dust in the sky.
Yeah, right?
Do you know what this scene reminded me of? Is like that Harry Potter moment where where they're on the broom the first time, and Neville like is trying to hang on to this broom that's going crazy, and it's like he's like it's flying around.
Yeah, throwing him around the courtyard. Yeah.
But that's what I have envisioned is like Mavra holding this sword, just
like,
flinging around.
I know. Really, Dresden could have milked that a little bit more, when he realized she was hanging. Instead of just like flinging her, exactly, he totally could have done like something.
Give her whiplash.
Yeah, just like bounce her around. Like when you write your name with a sparkler.
They already said too, like the Black Court has a really bad like flesh suit, like they're already a little bit like
they
decompose and stuff. So yeah, like I think like some violent thrashing would have done her some harm, like
yeah, probably. Yeah, they don't recover the same way. Like you knock off like an ear or a limb, and they basically just stay like corpses where they've lost that like ear.
Yeah.
Then
no, not the same regeneration that the Red Court gets.
Yeah, because the Red Court can just pull on their. They just make it themselves, so they can always.
I always wanted to see Harry drop Amarachius back into Michael's hand, whether or not Mavra was holding on to it, just to see what would have happened.
That would have been cool, too.
Yeah, that'd be something to see.
But
that reminds me.
Total superhero moment of just putting it right into the next hand.
When you play Mario and you get to, like, at the end of every boss fight as you're fighting Bowser's children or whatever like that, and, like, the magic wand
the
flies from the
scepter
sky,
comes down.
and he always, like, jumps and gets it and pauses. Like, Harry or Michael just does one of those.
Right? He's in the middle of like flinging a vamp off of him, so his hand is like up and outstretched, and all of a sudden Amarachius just comes flying down right into it, and he's like, "Wah!" And,
would have been cool.
Totally takes out the next 10 vamps. That
Another
are in
missed
front of them all
opportunity.
at one shot.
Jim Butcher has said, he's like, you know what, I think like if we were to do another TV show, he would prefer it to be animated. He's like, I think it just fits better for the show.
Yes.
Easier to do
Absolutely.
an animated Dresden Files,
Yeah.
And yeah, like that'd be.
This is the kind of shit
That'd
you
be
can
a real
do
good
then.
scene, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I did like when he said, I mean, it's kind of comical, and we used to hear splatting, but then he's like, there was a bunch of like dry crackling and popping, and so it's like she still kind of squished a little when she hit it, but apparently it didn't do much because apparently the next second she pops back up and runs off again. So that's just rude.
Right, she recovers and tries to attack Dresden, but Michael uses the daggers across again and drives her back.
Yes. Did she go back after?
Yeah,
I thought she just disappeared after that.
No,
she goes back after Michael.
He backs her up off of the dais.
Oh,
but
yes,
he uses the cross first.
That's right. Yes, she comes back up.
What's great is Michael is just living for this battle. He's just so happy in this joyful, like light shines the brightest and in the deepest dark, Michael shouted, a fierce joy on his face, his eyes alight with passion and vengeance I had never seen in him. Like, he's just living for it.
It's like, let come the forces of night, we will stand. Harry's like, we will get the fuck out of here, thank you very much. I'm like, yes, but exactly right. Michael's just totally in his element, totally in the moment of like vanquishing evil, and Harry's like, get the fuck out of here.
He's practically maniacally laughing, like, yes, let's fucking do this.
Like, come on, you dead bitch.
I think that after he lost Amarakis, I don't think Michael expected him ever to get back into like righteous combat ever again.
Well, probably some of that too, right? That exactly, even without it, and even wondering if maybe the Lord's telling him it's time to move on, but he's like, I'm still kicking butt and I'm kicking it well, so.
I forgot how much I love this!
Yeah, right.
It's almost like, it's obviously to a lesser extent for Michael, but it's almost one of those things when like your boss is just like it's horrible and it sucks and they don't pay you enough and they don't give you enough vacation days, and then you're like, you know what, fuck it, I will just be my own consultant. And then you're like, wait, I can actually do this. I don't need a company or a boss.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like a minute there where Michael is obviously, he's not giving up on God the same way we give up on bosses. But he's like,
no,
I don't need the sword. I'm just awesome anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great moment.
It's actually even funnier because it's like, Michael is one of these like dedicated, like he's got his routine, he's got his shit together enough that like, yeah, with or without God, he gets up in the morning and he does his like 100 push-ups and his whatever, whereas Harry's like, if I don't have magic, I am a shell of a person. Like, I can't do shit. I don't get up and do push-ups. I don't, right? Whereas Michael's like, no, I put in the work regardless of
right,
God,
exactly. Harry's like, I only started doing push-ups because stuff kept coming after.
Yeah, like, we'll see in later books. He only picks up running because he's like, you know what, I find myself running for my life all the time.
I was getting really tired after those fights. Maybe I should do something.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, Michael would just anyways. But no, one of my favorite. Let come the fuck we will.
And a little too into this, Michael.
But quietly, so Michael. So
Dresden picks up Lydia and they head back down the stairs.
So here was a thought I had going through this again, even though we're like, three quarters, 2/3 of the way through the book or whatever, and I just dawned on me, and I was like, was there any inspiration of Lydia? Did he steal that from Beetlejuice? Because she was Lydia, and she was all like dark and goth and whatever, and Lydia is basically, or did Lydia steal that because she'd seen Beetlejuice and decided she wanted to be Lydia?
I think it's maybe a little fan nod.
You've never come across any, you don't have some fancy like word of Jim to pull out and be like, as a matter of fact, he was watching Beetlejuice when he wrote that scene, and that's exactly why he named her that.
Don't.
Dang.
Sorry.
I'd like to assume he did.
Yeah, because I haven't seen it in forever. It was just something that really kind of randomly popped up to me, and I was like, ooh, that would be, I could see an association there, but it doesn't necessarily have to.
I would say, though, that if it could be a good thing for Jim Butcher to be like, I need, like, a victim of, like, some weirdo. He's like, yeah, Beetlejuice is a weirdo.
He was. That's twice now. Yeah.
So Susan is holding her own in this fight, and she's using holy water and her gun. The vamp fell to the ground, and I remember thinking, she just killed the thing, really, and truly taking out one of them. A fierce pride shot through me, and I headed downstairs.
So, yes, Michael and Harry have rescued Lydia and are on their way back down, and so he gets, kind of a view of what Thomas and Susan and Justine are doing, holding that little space for them at the bottom of the stairs for them to retreat to. And this is kind of ingenious on Susan's part. Like, I did like this. Like, it's not just that she, like, water ballooned, like, she throws it into the spotlight and
that
gets,
was
like,
cool.
Maximum of, she doesn't just, like, ooh, I burned a hole in his shoulder where he's, like, she throws it into these frickin' spotlights that have been on all night, so their aura shatters, vaporizes, engulfs them in, like, a whole cloud of mist, and does, like I say, like, maximum damage here, just gets, like, the full effect. And then, just to make sure, she whips out the gun, this big-ass 45 that she brought with her, and she's kind of like, he does say, he's like, it's kind of a blam, blam, blam of panic fire, but it works, and she gets them in the gut, and she's just completely put this thing down and out, and Dresden's like, go girl, and I'm like, yeah! Like, again, considering that, Susan's, report, like, she's not a dumb person, right? This is just giving, sort of credit to Susan being an intelligent woman and stuff like that, but again, definitely her first fight. She didn't even realize she'd been chatting up vampires yet at this point, because, she's like, well, I haven't got my interview, and turns off her recorder until I'm sure she's had a few conversations with them if she's talked to anybody at the party, but, like, she doesn't battle, she doesn't do this, she's not up on the, and again, like, this scary, like he says at the beginning of the chapter, it's not all neat and orderly. You just basically go into chaos and you're like, how do I stay alive? And Susan still manages to keep her head on her shoulder and like be a little bit inventive and, you know, like.
And you should also throw in the fact that like, it's not even like you've got like, okay, well, I trust Harry. Like, she doesn't know who Harry is right now. So on top of all of that, like, you don't even have an ally right now.
That's true.
She's fully on her own as far as she's concerned.
Yeah, she's in a group of strangers.
4 people she's met for like 5 minutes, you know, exactly, where they're like, well, we know you and we want to get you out of here, but that's all she's got to go on, exactly.
She's like, fuck you, bitches, I got this.
And essentially, like, she's got no choice. Like, it's great to assume that these people are on your team because they say they are and they're currently helping you, but you don't know for certain because you don't. Even Michael, who she like briefly met, that was through Dresden.
Boy,
so she
ain't that the truth in about 5 minutes.
Well,
but yeah, but she does. That's it. She doesn't really remember meeting Michael either. So and nobody's met Thomas and Justine before.
For
so
all
like,
she knows, she's really on her own. So if she doesn't try right now, she's really hooped.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So
self-rescuing princess.
Right? Exactly. And I mean, again, like you say, it's not like all of her memories, like as we learned with the very subjective taking of Dresden and that. Then again, I'm like, at least she's not completely, you know, she remembers going there, she knows something about it that gives her, but yeah, like you say, just the fact of a lack of concrete trusted allies, like you say, before she was all like, well, no problem, I can take on Kyle and Kelly because I got Dresden here. You know?
So things are going quite well for them up to this point until...
They're still alive. That's
Bianca,
one in the win column.
Bianca manages to nab Justine and sedates her with a lick and calls for everybody to stop.
More spit.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's when the luck ran out. She takes one step too far to the side and... Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Justine. We really had this shit until you had to do this.
Right? There was, Susan was kicking ass, and then you just...
Start editing out all my swears. The Discord is calling me out.
Potty mouth, Jeff says potty mouth.
We're just going to have to level up our swears is what we're going to have to do.
I was thinking, I was like, wow, I thought I swore.
I know, right? They're like, who's
this
swearing so much? I'm like, is it just me? Like, they also swear.
Apparently.
But maybe they just can't tell our voices apart and they just keep throwing it on me.
Oh, that's true. You and me are the ones constantly swearing and they just think it's all one person.
Yeah, they're all just putting it on me. I was like, even Tanzan swears too. I'm like, why is this? But
right. I think we each have a swear in our Patreon ad, really. Like, fuck ton of bonuses. Come on.
That's right.
And you wrote that.
I did.
I was like, a lot of our intros and, well, not everything, but I was like, I wrote a lot of the original scripts, but you're the one who wrote all of that, so.
Right?
Joke's on all of you.
Yeah, here I thought we were being...
We had a meeting at the beginning of this. Are we going to keep this clean? And we all agreed no. But I'm the only one who's getting in trouble for it.
Not a chance that was going to make it through. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So
Bianca offers a bargain to Thomas to have him give up Dresden, Susan, and Michael for Justine to own uncontestedly, which Thomas takes the offer and sends Susan into the crowd of vampires.
Okay, he gives this look to Harry. Harry or Dresden? Thomas gives a look to Dresden. He's not on a first name basis with him.
Right.
Thomas, looks at Harry and I don't know what he says, but something. Or Harry says to him, like, fucking don't do this. And Thomas gives him a look and he's like, it's like he was trying to tell me something. But maybe it was just, remorse or whatever, right? And yeah, like, you're like, yeah, like, what is he saying? And then you're instantly like, fuck you, Thomas, you stupid piece of shit.
Yeah. This guy. Right? And like, okay, so just going back when Bianca Verta talks to him and she's like, if you could force your way out of here, you'd have done it already. I'm like, hello, that's what they're in the middle of.
Give him 5 more minutes.
And he's like, exactly, like Dresden says, because she's like, the game has ended. He's like, you haven't taken us down yet. And then she's like, oh, you would have busted. I'm like, they needed to go save the other girl first, okay? This is hello, the good guys, the white hats. They're gonna...
If you're imagining this battlefield right now, you've got this unit who, like, moved further into the fray to go up these stairs, grabbed Lydia, then they're working their way back down. Like, that's impressive to do when you've got shit coming from you at all sides, right?
Oh,
like,
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, you're in a party, like, you're completely surrounded by at least dozens, if not...
I can't think of any, movie right now at the moment, but I'm trying to think of, like, the 300 or Game of Thrones or something like that, and I can't think of a specific scene. Or even in Harry Potter, when you've got, Neville and Seamus and shit trying to blow up the bridge in the last movie when the Death Eaters or the Scroungers, is that what they are? Come up to the bridge.
The scavenger ones that are trying to...
I think Scroungers was the word, but the point is like...
I think so, that's gonna bug me now.
It's like you've got like, you see like these like 3 bad guys and you're like, ha ha, and then suddenly it's just like the camera pans out and there's like 40 million versus your like 3 good guys or whatever like that. You're like,
Yeah. Oh, shit.
right? So it's very impressive to imagine this, like, you know, like this scene of like this group having kept it together so well, and like, you know, essentially like they're taking hits, but they're not, you know, dying, right? And they're
Snatchers,
moving
that's what
through
they were, the snatchers.
So
Yeah.
it was.
But anyways.
Point is that it was a very impressive scene, right? So it's just that much more like, yeah, give them a minute, bitch.
Well-
They are still on their feet, aren't they?
Yeah, and exactly. I was like, they are literally in the middle of knocking their way through out of this. I'm like, yeah, you just got a slight advantage, but you know, you make it sound like, you know, yeah, you've whatever. I don't know. I don't like it. I'm like, you're getting a little ahead of yourself there, Bianca.
Yeah. Well, she's kind of
But then-
cocky in general, really.
Well, she is. I mean, that's part of her whole thing.
And not
She
only
thinks
that, but
she's
if
so
she'd let them
fabulous.
continue, they would have gotten out.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, fine, you're kind of putting them
She
off
did have
now,
to
but-
stop them, or they would have actually succeeded.
I know, but it's just still.
Bianca instantly double crosses Thomas and then orders Kyle and Mavra to kill him anyways.
Yes.
So she just double cross, like two double crosses right there. Bam, bam.
I'm keeping Justine killed Tom, the white-bellied bitch, or whatever the fuck she called him.
Yes.
It's a good insult, whatever it is.
So yeah, so exactly, you're all like, what is Thomas trying to convey? Because he's like, you know, glances back up at him, and he's like, I feel like he was trying to tell me something, and you're like, and then he just boots Susan, right? And you're like, what?
That what?
He
What?
boots Susan.
He just
right.
pushes Susan right out. And technically he didn't kick her as much
gets-
as he just put his boot on
She
her.
gets consumed into the fray immediately.
She just,
not
and
held
she's
on
got
the
this
edges,
startled, like you can picture this so well too, like that startled scream of like, "Ooh, what the fuck did you just?" And then like, yeah, it disappears, and then like
you get a little
couple days-
winded, and then you're in the belly of the beast.
You're yeah, like the whole, and then like
Yeah.
just the little cry a few minutes later, and then like nothing.
It's
and,
pretty
like,
fucking harsh.
Yeah,
And you should know too, like, people on the internet are dumb and stupid and they don't understand what they're saying. And people are like, this is like the moment Harry's gonna go back and change. No, because that was Thomas's. We're still
That
on Harry's. What he changes.
yeah, and I gotta,
Which, you know, is chapter 29 when that happens. So that was last chapter that whole moment went down. But people are like, oh, like Harry's gonna go back and stop like that. No, you're wrong. This is Thomas's. Totally put it on Thomas. No matter what he was trying to convey to Harry, no matter what he thought he was gonna get out of it, Thomas can never take that back.
And so yeah, so then Thomas is gonna go do whatever Thomas is gonna do, and yeah, Bianca's like, I don't think so, and he's like, you bitch, which is succinct but also very mild. Or I think Harry's reaction is much more, and like he get like I again, right? He's like, my mouth is working, like words aren't like Harry just suddenly like cannot compute the
emotions,
fathomness,
like, just-
cannot fathom the hugeness of it. Like, yeah,
He's overwhelmed, like-
It's completely, and it's funny because this is where, like, in her little speech and stuff to him, Bianca's all like, "You're running out of steam. Like, you've already had a big bite taken out of you. You weren't, you know, fully up to power when you came, and you're running out now, and, you know, like, whatever you've got is keeping you on your feet, right? Everyone's counting him as down, and Harry almost is, you know, himself at this point, too, right? Like, but you guys should know, like, do these villains never, ever, ever, ever watch movies themselves? You never taunt. The taunting almost never works in your favor. You know?
It's not a villain without a villain speech, okay?
It's not a villain without a villain speech, but they always try and, like, use it like they're gonna psych you out, and it almost never works. You know?
It's almost like, you know, you give them inspiration.
It's every time, you're right? You're trying to piss them off and, like, throw them off their game, but all you do is piss them off so much that they reach to, you know, unexplored depths of rage and power and, you know, mother flipping cars off kids.
Well, people say it all the
like-
time. You get to that moment where it's like you've got nothing else to lose, so you might as well just go full hard. And that's totally what Harry does right now. He kind of like is like,
but everybody's always
I
like,
know.
oh, I'm gonna poke holes and make you, and it's always like, damn, that was you might have had him, Bianca.
Dresden utilizes his pain, his hurt, and his fury to start one hell of a fire spell to light the place ablaze. And a part of this totally reminded me of the prom scene from Carrie.
Yeah, I've never actually watched that. I'm familiar with the gist, but I've never actually watched. I don't think that. Yeah.
You've seen that one, like
yeah.
like she loses her mind, she like fucking loses it, and she slams all the doors shut, and like ends up something she does like
There's like
she's-
pig's blood drops out, or maybe it's real blood.
One of
in
the
this
lights
version,
and, like-
I don't know.
No, it's
It's sort
pig
of
blood,
it's-
yeah.
Pig blood, okay, yeah.
one of the lights ends up exploding and causing this big fire, so everybody is
Okay.
trapped in there, and the whole place just lights up ablaze.
Right.
And just that sort of complete and utter blind rage.
Yes.
And so that's why it like completely reminded me of that scene.
Yes.
Actually, if you really want to date yourself, go back to the movie Firestarter with Drew Barrymore.
That one I actually have seen.
Oh yeah, when she goes nuts and burns down the compound, same vibe, the exact same vibe. Like it's all coming down, and I'm taking it.
And this
It's very Stephen King sort of inspiration, I think.
Yes. Yep.
And this, I think, is very much the difference between, our superheroes and our fictional characters in our real life, because I felt like this many a time in my life. There's tons of times where I super wish I could have, like, fire blasted somebody from across the room, or, like, dropped a piano on their head, or, like, you have the person that cut you off in traffic that you do. I mean, okay, maybe not quite. I don't get that mad at them. But the difference is
I don't have
that
road rage.
Harry-
I'm just
No,
saying
I know.
I have rage against the general population, okay?
It's much more generalized.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, mine's usually much more, exactly, very, when somebody close to you hurts you or whatever, and you just feel that snapping part. But yeah, the difference is that when Harry feels it, he can do something about it.
Yeah, you get some wicked power from it.
And scares himself. So he has, he's like, I think Michael must have sensed something and taken the girl from my arms, because the next thing I remember is thrusting my hands towards the night sky and screaming, Fuego! Pyro Fuego! Burn, you greasy bat-faced bastards! Burn!
Good point.
Yeah.
Harry also swears, so I'm just quoting the text at all times.
Just not as frequently as Harry's is a little more reserved.
At any
than
and
we
all
are.
times, I am quoting the text.
Any and all.
So that fire catches a lot of vampires and like destroys them.
So
And not vampires.
Yeah, that
blasts everybody in the immediate range, and then and this is the other thing, is that he's furious, but he's still enough that he does sort of notice that they're still. And a few of them, he does make a point that some of them are very definitely dead already. Some of them breathed, a few whimpered and tried to crawl away from the heat, but most lay dreadfully perfectly still, pale, pretty, dead. So
That sounds to me like they were already dead.
they
before
were.
the
Those
fire,
was
like-
there's a few that have already been eaten up by the vampires, but this is that it's not, they haven't eaten all of their party food or whatever. There's still a few that are just kind of drugged out and blissed out and can't fully make their escape because they're
Drugged
in
up.
a compromised position. Yeah. And he
And if
sort
not
of-
drugged up, burned up.
Right.
well
Hard to walk out on a 50th degree burns.
that's just it, is that, but he's still, and it still takes, and it comes back on him too, because, he's like, at first, I was like, is it metaphorical or not? But it's really not, because he talks about his injuries in the next one too, but like, where is it where he says, I'm fire, I was on fire, or something like that. There's a pretty vivid scene about one of the vampires trying to get back in the fire, basically. Like, again, where this is still not just fire, because he says at some point too, he's like, you use the magic to make the fire, but once it's there, fire is fire and will act like fire and will just be normal fire, right? But this is where you can still sell, like, the manipulation of it in his rage, because this thing basically reaches out and grabs the vampire, like, sucks
It's a
it back
vindictive
in.
fire.
It's, yes, right? It has
Magical vindictive.
It's not just,
Well, and Harry says as much. He's like, the fire in me grew. Like, this isn't like calming him down. He's getting more and more ramped up the longer this goes, It's
yeah.
almost like he's puppeting his own body with his magic, Like, he's just like, he's controlling the fire and he's controlling himself with this rage.
Like this sort of
you know?
cyclical, like the rage sort of
Yeah.
continues
Totally, yeah.
to burn, and the more it burns, the more the fire happens.
Something
and
about,
gets
Newton and
just
Einstein and,
feeding in on
Sort of
itself,
self-perpetuating.
and becoming
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. So Michael hauls him up in like a fireman's carry and drags him down the steps and stuff like that. And he's like, he drops him down or whatever. He's like, the magic coursed through me slower now. It trickled, not because the floodgates had closed, but because I had nothing left to pour out. I hurt. Fire spread out from my heart, my arms and legs clenching and twitching. I couldn't get a breath, couldn't think, and I knew somewhere, amidst all that pain, that I was about to die. So you're like, in a sense, it's sort of the metaphorical, like, fire spread out from my heart. But then you actually discover that he did some serious damage to himself, too, releasing all of this, because he has all but set himself on fire in calling this huge firestorm and releasing it and stuff like that, too. So it's, half metaphor, half truthful there. I don't know.
So Michael grabs Lydia and now a very weak Dresden, and he makes this prayer to ask how to get out of the flames and the smoke. And his prayers are kind of answered. Not the way he expects. Like this.
I love how that line ended when he's kind of praying. Lord, so if you could be kind enough to show me how to get us out of here, I'd really appreciate it. Like, he's not demanding help from God, but like, I'd appreciate a little help.
If it's within your divine will, if this is how this is supposed to go on, that would be a great time.
I get it if you want me to die here, but if not.
I know. Well, and I liked you how he starts it even, because he's like, Lord, I know Harry hasn't always done what you would have done, but he's a good man. He's doing it again, you know. It's like ends justify the means a little bit here. It's not quite how you would like.
I'm sorry for my friend, but will you please still help us?
I was gonna say, I like most of us who don't pray all the time, but when we really, really need to, then we're like, I know I don't do this very often, but if you could like make the car go right now, I really need to get to work. Like,
this is really important right now. Yeah, exactly. And then and then Harry's like, I didn't think he was always so literal.
The smoke parts and this it's leading to this feminine figure, which sounds like an angel, but it turns out to be it's Leah.
Not so much.
Surprise!
I did want to go back to something that I thought was absolutely hysterical. I don't know if anyone else caught it, where Harry stops himself from swearing when he goes, I thought he wasn't so literal. And Michael says, are you complaining? And Harry goes, like H, and then, heck no. I mean, you know what he was going to say, but like, with divine intervention, maybe I'll tone the language down just a little bit.
God is probably literally saving our butts right now. Heck no. Where's Susan?
Right?
Wow, that actually worked. I better be good.
Yeah, right. You know how that whole, like, I promise I'll never swear again. Oh, wait. This time I promise I'll never. No, it was good.
Yeah. And then it's Leah.
And then it's Jess.
Yeah, Leah admits to showing the way to escape and saving them.
Sorry, which is not to say, I mean, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
That's
still
say, she could also just take credit. It's not like God is going to be like,
She would totally take credit, but again, how do we know that God didn't decide to be like, okay, Leah, go ahead and name it?
Though it pains me in ways I could not explain. Yes, child. How am I supposed to have you if I let this red court hussy kill you? Stars above, wizard. I thought you had better sense than this.
Right.
Love that line.
So you save me so you can have me. Well, duh. Just not like this, because now you're all like, what?
Yeah. You're too pathetic to actually take now.
Like, you used yourself all up right now.
Yeah. Have a nap, get some food into you, then we'll
get rid of that ridiculous costume. That's the other thing you have to stop and remember, that when he goes like super psycho, superhero impressive, he's still wearing a powder blue tux.
Dressed like Napoleon Dynamite right now. Prom.
I totally do forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he says when the fire starts whipping and he's like, my cloak like billowed and like red and sable. And you're like, oh yeah, that's still the cheesy
so cool. No,
black and red vampire cloak that you're your plastic gold medallion. I'm guessing he's probably ditched the teeth.
I was going to say, I'm like trying to shout out like, Fuego, Pyro,
Fuego. Yeah.
Fuck you, Bianca.
And you know that some of the Red Court that died right there went to oblivion knowing they got killed by someone wearing a really bad...
before you die.
Smart-ass mortal
exactly
and a
right.
cheesy vampire. You fuck.
Yeah, it's like, oh, god damn it.
Like, would that be like the ultimate insult to injury?
I like it even better, like that whole like ghost thing or whatever like that. You only remember like the last few seconds of your life or whatever like that. So it's like you fully think like you're a vampire who got killed by another vampire. Like, what the fuck happened in there? What?
That's hilarious.
So yeah, Michael flings him into the vehicle and tries to go back for Susan. And then,
because Harry's like, Susan, where's Susan? Where's Susan?
And he does manage to get Lydia out of the house as well.
Yeah, he throws Lydia and Harry into the vehicle and goes back for Susan.
Yeah.
Next thing Harry knows.
Kind of tries. He's like aware. He's like, I doesn't he try to do something? He's like, I tried to move to make sure the girl was all right. And he's like, that was too difficult.
Yeah. So he totally just... The last thing he hears is the truck starting up and he passes out, just done.
Yeah.
Literally. If we take a moment to appreciate how strong Michael actually is, because he carried both Harry and Lydia out of there, and Harry's not a tiny person.
Not even close. Neither is
No.
Michael, but we have established that he is still taller than Michael.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yes, and even though Lydia is pretty much a little slip of a girl, I think
Dead weight is still dead weight.
We've already
Yeah.
had that discussion on how much battle exhausts you. Like 5 seconds of battle is like,
Yeah.
you know, a 2-hour workout or something like that, right? So yeah, and again, it wasn't even 1-on-1. He literally had like hordes of vampires.
And on top of this,
tackling
Harry did light him on
him.
fire a moment ago. Like, it did a scar to his own cloak because it was in flames, right? Like,
You know, so
yeah.
yeah, go Michael.
Seriously.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So, Mike, do you have anything anything else that you'd like to kind of cover before we wrap this chapter up?
Not really. I mean, this was really entertaining to be a part of. I thank you guys very much for inviting me. I would like to say that James Marster has a sexy voice.
Yes, he
listening
does.
listening to the audiobooks. But I also want to thank you guys for doing this podcast. I mean, I have been listening to it at work for months now, and it is incredibly entertaining. So thank you guys very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, no, we've been having fun. It's
Flattery gets you everywhere.
right. You know, it is nice to know that yes, people are listening and enjoying it. Which again,
Oh, absolutely.
people pop up on Discord, so we have to assume that obviously somebody is. But
Yeah.
it's cool that you. We don't suck.
I mean, my roommate doesn't use Discord, but I know she's been listening to the podcast as well because she absolutely she binged the whole series once she found out about it
Nice.
after I told her. So
Aces.
Well,
Yeah.
tell them to hop on Discord and come chat. It's a lot
do.
more fun. We need more people. We're trying to get that whole community.
This concludes our episode 8.16, Fuego, Pyro, Fuego. Thank you for listening. And once again, thank you so much, Mike, for coming on the show. It's been fabulous to have you.
it's been a lot of fun. Thank you so very much.
You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnallys.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.